former Mideast peace negotiator Aaron David Miller, former NATO Supreme Allied Commander General Wesley Clark, former political prisoner in Iran, NYU International Relations Professor Kian Tajbakhsh. It's good to have each and all once again. General, it'll take 4 hours, knock it all out, and just like that, what? Help me understand this, General. Who gives advice that you're not going to decimate the population, create incredible suffering for the people you're supposedly trying to help, and that this is what would cripple the regime? Help us understand, General, if this is doable and if that makes it sound like an achievable goal.
Well, in the first place, Chris, as I've been saying since the beginning, the problem with an air campaign is you start to run out of militarily significant targets. And so we've struck 11,000, 12,000 targets, probably restruck some of them, and now we're looking for other things that make a difference. So we're going to go after dual use things like the electric power. And if you can justify it as it's helping a military as well as a civilian, if it's dual use, same with the bridges, transportation networks, then that's a legitimate military target. If it was only for the civilians, there's a small suburban area with its own power plant that's not doing anything. Well, that's clearly off limits. But if it's dual use, it's a legitimate target. So how many of these are there? We don't know. Is the 4 hours an exaggeration? Maybe. But he's trying to convey the idea that it's going to be a big blow. Now, the question then comes, okay, let's say we do that. Then what?
Exactly. That's what I was asking you, is that I really don't understand this, General. Sometimes I feign outrage, I feign a quizzical nature just to kind of keep conversation going. It's kind of my job, some would say.
Oh, look,
this
Chris,
is completely genuine. I don't get this.
He's trying to put the pressure on a regime that's probably fragmented and probably split on this. And he's trying to emphasize the fact that it's better for them to stop now while they're ahead than to persist. The problem, of course, is that they still have the Straits of Hormuz. So if they stop, we're in a position where we can't control the Strait of Hormuz now, and we won't be able to if there's a ceasefire.
You know, by the way, I have suspended the disbelief that every source of mine on the military side has given me, that there is not an iteration of a war game or simulation for this that didn't include the regime making a move on the Strait of Hormuz. But then why are we in this position? If you modeled it in every scenario you did, how is it that this is where we are, ADM? Let me just move the ball around as if this is all General Wesley Clark's fault.
Actually, it's great to be here with General Clark and Kian. Let me be very clear, and I'll preface this by saying I worked for Democrats and Republicans, and I voted for Democrats and Republicans. What I saw today in almost an hour and a half is tactical brilliance of our military. I'll be charitable here. Strategic improvisation or strategic incompetence. The president launched a war of choice, which has now become a war of necessity for the international community and the global economy. On February 28th, the straits were open. They're not closed now, just the Iranians have set up a toll booth, granting preferential access to who or what gets through. And they'll end up cutting deals with individual countries. They may involve additional tolls, and the Gulf countries may be willing to pay that to get their oil out. I don't see an exit ramp. The Iranians, I'll defer to Wes Clark here. We're starting the 6th week of this war. The Iranians show absolutely no evidence that they are prepared, no matter what kind of military pressure the United States brings to bear, to become compliant, let alone to capitulate. Someone said, we've witnessed regime change. We've gone from divine power, the dominance of the clerics, and the what I call the malocracy, to hard power, which is the IRGC. And Wes Clark's right. They're probably fragmented. Command and control is a problem. But they're still making decisions, and they still have capacity. And no one, I've worked in the intelligence community for 5 years. I know what it's like to brief a Secretary of State and an American president. Did anybody show the president an atlas? Did anyone explain to him that the Iranians would deploy geography as a powerful weapon? So there isn't going to be an agreement by tomorrow midnight. And I don't know what the U.S. military plans. Would it surprise me if we woke up Wednesday morning and we saw ground forces as a part of this? Would not surprise me in the least. I don't see a way out, Chris. I really don't.
Kian, the other aspect of this, the one that obviously I'm most sensitive to, is that this is a regime filled with zealots. And if you go bombing infrastructure, you're going to hurt the rest of the population every bit as much as the regime itself. And what does that mean to you through the lens of what life would be like in Iran? If they hit even a good majority of the infrastructure to give water and give power, what does that make life like for people who think that better days are ahead?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on, Chris. Look, it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good at all. I can share with you what I think. I spoke with a number of people. Three things I took away from President Trump's speech today, and all of them are very, very concerning. For those who want a brighter future for Iran, what they heard the president say was, I am in negotiations with Iranian counterparts who are negotiating in good faith. First of all, I don't believe any of the leadership in Iran is negotiating in good faith in the sense that they are willing to, just as Aaron mentioned, capitulate or to, which is, I think, what President Trump means. So I don't know what that means. Either he doesn't understand the regime leadership, which is that they enter into negotiations on a completely different set of assumptions, or he's just being disingenuous. The second thing is they heard that he wants to bomb the country back to the Stone Age. That really is concerning because it shows me, quite apart from the, okay, let's leave aside that it's bluster. But you know what hurts for, what a lot of Iranians hear is they think, who exactly are you threatening? Because the regime doesn't care about the infrastructure. The regime doesn't care about the bridges or the water. It's the people in Iran who are going to care about it. Iran has one of the best infrastructures in the Middle East. It has great roads, it has great schools, and that's not built by the regime. That's built by a bureaucracy that is well-trained and that has been working ever since the days of the Shah to build schools, to build hospitals, to build transportation, and that's very important. And so the third thing, Chris, I think Iranians heard was a sort of pleadingness on the part of the President of the United States for the Iranians to open up the Straits of Hormuz. So what they're thinking is, actually what's going to happen at the end is the Americans are going to leave, and they're going to leave us with a regime that is still in power because there hasn't been regime change, and they're going to be more empowered than they were before, and we're not going to have the infrastructure which made life livable for us. So it looks really bad, and I've got to tell you that this kind of rhetoric has turned a lot of Iranians to think twice about American help.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.